Hey there, it's Paul Omahony here, and today I'm going to answer the question that people have who are in a safe and comfortable job, saying, do I really need to have a business in addition to my job? Okay, before we get started here, if you want to find out more specifically about this topic, feel free to go to rethinksocialmedia.com, where we have more online free training available for you where we go into this topic in more depth. So I think this is really a very, very good question. In fact, it was exactly where I came from in the beginning when I had what I considered a very safe job within a corporate environment. And I'd even done the MBA. I had studied an MBA for 2 years, and we all agreed in the class that pretty much that we thought, at least at that point, that business was definitely not for us. We were going to fly and go up this corporate ladder, and that was the plan. And we felt that was the safest strategy. Just make sure that we work for somebody else and let them take on the business risk. Well, within 2 years of that, I was brought into my boss's office, who told me that I had to have 40% of my department be made redundant, and I had to choose who those 40% of the people were. Now, I had been working with these guys for years. I'd become very close friends with them. We were in a very, closely knit group within our organization, and I had to choose, 2 out of every 5 people were going to lose their jobs, and some of them had been there for 10 years. They were all permanent jobs. Everybody there felt that they were going to be there for life, pretty much, even though they didn't say that. It was kind of assumed. And suddenly I had to be the bad guy to go in and make that decision. And from that moment onwards, I realized that it could be at any point that I could be brought into the room and be told that you're one of the 40% that need to go right now. And what was my safety blanket, my safety net, was suddenly whipped from under me. And I realized, you know what? I can see now why there is a need to actually have a different source of income that's completely separate to my job. Because if you actually think it through, when you signed your contract of employment to begin with, assuming of course that you have a job right now, you're told that you need to give 30 days notice, maybe 60 days notice, and in some countries it can be up to maybe 3 months notice. But pretty much what you're on is a rolling contract where they can give you 30 days notice at any point and you have got to go. This whole permanent thing doesn't stand up anymore. There's no such thing as a permanent job today. So for me, the biggest risk you could ever take being in a job and feeling comfortable is actually feeling safe. If you don't risk anything, you risk everything. You really do need to think about, well, how could I bring in an additional source? Now, let's be clear. I'm not telling you that suddenly you need to quit your job, but I do want to explain to you a process where you can move from being a job owner to the next stage, which is basically becoming an employer or even self-employed. And this can be done in 1 to 2 hours a day at home. You can do it in the morning or you could do it in the evening. Gary Vaynerchuk often talks about this. He says the difference between most people, ultimately, when it comes to their money and their income and their wealth, is what they do from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the evenings after work. When most people sit down, relax, put on the TV, whatever it is, he said those 2 hours everybody really has to play with. Maybe it's 7 o'clock to 9 p.m., right? But it's what you do in those 2 hours that will define where you are 5 to 10 years from now. So that's the thing. You don't need to have 8 to 9 hours a day and suddenly, okay, I'm going to just quit this job and I'm going to fully go in on this business. You don't need to do that because, first of all, you're cutting off your source of income. Right? You never bite the hand that feeds. You don't want to have the added stress of having no income in before you start, because then who's going to pay the mortgage, who's going to pay the bills, who's going to pay for the children's education. So you keep that coming in, but you use part of that money to help fund this business. Now, my suggestion is, especially if you've got 1 to 2 hours a day, even slightly less, even 30 minutes to 45 minutes, is to use that money to grow an online business. Okay, because it doesn't matter where you are on the planet, it's so easy to do from home. You need a Wi-Fi connection, laptop or an iPad, and get yourself set up and start working through the process of choosing a niche, choosing a specific business area where you see that people have problems, then identifying what are the best-selling services and products and solutions that are in that niche at this particular time, and then figuring out how do you match the people with the problems, with the businesses who have the best solutions, and just start to grow a database one step at a time. But none of that will happen. You're not going to push those buttons on your laptop to build that business unless I can push your button to make you realize that you really are at huge risk if you're reliant completely on a job right now. And let's explain why. Well, a few things. It's expected that approximately somewhere between a third and a half of all jobs that exist today will be gone in 20 years anyway. They will be redundant. Those jobs won't exist. The other thing is, now that I'm in the business field and have been for over a decade, I can see how competitive it is, and I can see that all businesses are constantly looking to reduce their expenses. So if they can find labour abroad or in a different country where it's going to be cheaper and the talent level may not be as good, but they can make up for it in volume, they will move. And if they can automate a human role into get it managed through software, that will happen. I mean, right now we're in the midst of chatbots, this new whole system where Facebook Messenger can be automated and interact with the website directly with the person, asking them all of the questions that they need, giving them a selection of choices to choose from, which is going to massively disrupt the whole customer service industry. So many jobs are going to be lost in that purely because it can now be automated, it can be more efficient, it can get people to where they want to go an awful lot faster. So it's happening right in front of our eyes, and we can either complain about it or we can jump on board and say, well, maybe I should become a master of that specifically. Maybe I can look at that and figure out how I can help other businesses cut their costs by using this types of technology and integrating that with their businesses. So what I would suggest you do is start to think about, well, what is it that you would actually like to get involved in? Most people that I meet, really, even when they're comfortable in a job, at some point in their career, usually earlier on, they did have this kind of yearning within them that they would like to do something themselves. But they were just so worried about the risks and that so many businesses fail and that's expensive. You're going to need to write a business plan. You're going to need to get a business loan. All these things which have completely disappeared and there's absolutely no requirement for, especially if you take the road of setting up an online business specifically. Okay, so what I would suggest you do is start to listen to more videos from me specifically on this topic. Dig a little bit deeper on rethinksocialmedia.com. It will completely change the way you think about it. I wouldn't discuss it with your closest friends and family who, especially if they're in roles right now where they're in jobs, because they will see this as a huge risk, not because they're wrong, but according to the way they view the world. Not having a job is the highest, it's just so risky. But it's quite the opposite, in fact. And if we look at the wealthiest people on the planet, it's been proven consistently, they're not employees. Right? They're business owners. They hire lots of other people, but they ultimately are business owners. They started as self-employed, then they went on to business owners and became investors. And the best way for you to de-risk you in your job right now is to look at what are the alternatives that you could start looking at immediately, 1 hour an evening, to start focusing on building an online business, solving problems for people, and changing the way you get paid from being by the hour to getting paid based on the value that you provide to others. The great news about that is time is strictly limited. The value you can provide to others, there is absolutely no limit on that. So have a think about that. If you enjoy this or there's a friend or family member that you feel would actually benefit from this video, please feel free to tag them in. Please share the video. Please like, and if you have any comments, I'd love to see it below.